Welcome back, everyone, to a new story. We really hope you enjoy it.
The air in the locker room was thick with the smell of victory. It was a potent cocktail of sweat, cheap champagne sprayed in celebration, and the kind of suffocating male ego that only a last-minute touchdown can produce. I was Daniel, the team's quarterback, and my world was simple football, glory, and the unspoken rule that we, the jocks, were the kings of this campus. To us, Mike, our hulking linebacker, roared, sloshing champagne onto the concrete floor, and to all the little people who wished they were us. We all cheered, a chorus of deep, boisterous voices. It was a stupid, arrogant toast. But we were 21 and felt invincible. That's when I saw her, standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the harsh light of the hallway, was a figure that didn't belong. It was Angela. A year ago, she'd been a cheerleader, a sweet, quiet girl we'd barely noticed until the day Jack, our ever-charming wide receiver, had made a cruel joke about her tripping during a routine. The joke had spread, followed by a wave of casual mockery from the whole team. She'd quit the squad a week later, vanishing from our social orbit. Now, she was back, but she looked different. There was a cold confidence in her eyes that hadn't been there before. And her smile, it wasn't friendly. It was sharp, like the edge of a broken mirror. "Enjoying your victory, boys?" she asked, her voice cutting through our drunken revelry. Jack swaggered forward. "Well, look who it is. Came to congratulate the winners. Angie." "Something like that," she replied, her smile widening. She held up a small, ornate silver locket. "I have a gift for the winning team. A little something to help you appreciate what it's like to be on the other side of the cheering." Before any of us could react, she clicked the locket open. A thick, sweet-smelling pink smoke billowed out, filling the room in seconds. It smelled like cotton candy and roses, a cloying, unnatural scent that made my head spin. I started to cough, waving my hand in front of my face. "What the hell is this?" I choked out. Then the feeling started. It began in my bones. A strange, unnerving vibration, as if my entire skeleton was being gently ground into dust and reformed. My muscles, hard-earned from years in the gym, suddenly felt like they were melting, turning soft and pliable like warm wax. I cried out, a sound that came out higher, thinner than I expected. I looked down at my hands. They were shrinking, the calluses on my palms smoothing over, my fingers becoming longer and more delicate. A wave of vertigo hit me as I felt my height decreasing, my shoulders narrowing, my entire frame compressing into something smaller, softer. Panic clawed at my throat. I tried to shout, to roar like the football player I was, but all that escaped my lips was a terrified shriek. Around me, the rest of the team was in a similar state of horrified transformation. Mike was on his knees, his massive arms withering, his barrel chest collapsing inward. Jack was clawing at his face, his sharp jawline softening into a delicate oval. The most shocking change was happening on my chest. I felt a strange pressure, a tingling fullness under my jersey. I watched in abject horror as two soft mounds began to swell, pushing against the tight fabric of my uniform. They grew with alarming speed, becoming sensitive and heavy. My football pads, once snug, now hung loosely over a frame they were no longer designed for. My jersey, which used to stretch across my pectoral muscles, was now straining to contain two very prominent, very real breasts. My hair, a short, practical buzz cut, began to grow. I could feel it tickling my neck, then my shoulders, cascading down my back in a silky curtain of what felt like blonde hair. My skin, usually rough and prone to scrapes, became smooth and flawless, tingling with a new, heightened sensitivity. My shorts, once tight on my muscular thighs, were now ridiculously baggy around a pair of slender, shapely legs. My hips had flared out, creating a curve that was undeniably, terrifyingly female. The smoke began to clear, revealing a room of 20 stunned, newly formed young women, all gasping in bodies that were not their own. Angela stood in the doorway, the empty locket in her hand, that chilling smile still playing on her lips. "There," she said, her voice laced with triumphant satisfaction. Now you're all pretty enough to be on the squad. Let's see how you like being the ones on display. I looked down at my own body, at the gentle curve of my stomach, the swell of my hips, the impossible weight on my chest. I tried to clench my fist, to feel the familiar strength of Daniel, the quarterback, but the hand that closed was small and elegant, with manicured nails I'd never seen before. A single horrified thought screamed through my mind, a thought that would become the new cornerstone of my reality. Wait, why do I have boobs this huge? Angela watched our collective meltdown for a moment longer, her eyes glittering with cold amusement. Then, with a final, satisfied nod, she turned and walked away, leaving us trapped in a nightmare of lace, curves, and confusion. The world swam back into focus with a groan. I don't know how I got from the locker room to my bed. The last thing I remembered was the sight of my teammates, now my sisters in misery, staring at their new forms with wide, terrified eyes before everything went dark. My first thought was that it had all been a horrible, champagne-fueled nightmare. I was Daniel. I was in my dorm room. I was safe. Then I opened my eyes. The room was wrong. My navy blue comforter was gone, replaced by a fluffy pink duvet. My posters of legendary quarterbacks were gone, replaced by framed prints of inspirational quotes in elegant cursive script. My cluttered desk was now a pristine white vanity, complete with a large, Hollywood-style mirror bordered with light bulbs and an array of brushes, powders, and colorful little pots I couldn't begin to identify. Panic, cold and sharp, shot through me. I threw the pink duvet off and scrambled out of bed. My legs felt unsteady, my center of gravity completely off. I was wearing a silky pink nightgown that barely reached my mid-thigh, and the cool morning air raised goosebumps on my smooth, hairless legs. And then I saw my reflection in the vanity mirror. The person staring back at me was a stranger, a girl, a very pretty girl, actually, with wide, terrified blue eyes, a cascade of honey blonde hair falling in soft waves around her shoulders, and a face with high cheekbones and full, rosy lips. She was wearing her pink nightgown, and the delicate fabric did little to hide the generous curves of her chest. I raised a hand to my face, and the girl in the mirror did the same. Her fingers were slender, her nails painted a pale, glossy pink. I touched my cheek. The skin was impossibly soft. I ran a hand through my hair. It was real, silky and thick. This wasn't a dream. This was me. A wave of nausea and rage washed over me. No, I whispered. But the voice that came out was a soft, melodic alto. It wasn't Daniel's voice. It was hers. This isn't real. I'm still me. I'm still a man. But my body betrayed my words at every turn. As I paced the room, my new hips swayed with a natural, gentle rhythm I couldn't control. The soft weight of my breasts bounced slightly with each step, a constant, undeniable reminder of my new anatomy. I felt a phantom itch on my jaw where my morning stubble should have been, but my fingers met only smooth, soft skin. My gaze fell on the closet, driven by a desperate need to find something familiar, something of Daniel's. I flung the doors open. There were no jerseys, no jeans, no hoodies. Instead, a rainbow of dresses, skirts, blouses, and sweaters greeted me. On the floor was a neat line of shoes, ballet flats, sandals, and several pairs of heels that looked like instruments of torture. Beside the closet was a dresser. I yanked open the top drawer, hoping for a pile of my old boxer shorts. What I found instead was a sea of delicate, colorful lace and silk, bras in every imaginable color, some padded, some not, matching panties, thongs, and other flimsy bits of fabric that looked more like decoration than functional underwear. My anger warred with a strange, creeping curiosity. It was a morbid fascination, the kind that makes you stare at a car crash. I picked up a lacy pink bra. The fabric was soft, the underwire firm and curved. How did this even work? My eyes darted to the mirror, to the girl with the terrified expression. My chest was completely unsupported beneath the thin nightgown, acting on an impulse I didn't understand. I turned my back to the mirror, slipped off the nightgown, and fumbled with the bra. The cold air on my bare skin was a shock. My skin was so sensitive. I wrapped the band around my chest, but the clasps were a mystery. They were a series of tiny hooks and eyes that seemed designed to frustrate. After a few pathetic attempts, my fingers trembling, I finally managed to hook it. I slid the straps over my shoulders and turned to face the mirror. I had to adjust the cups, lifting my new breasts into them. The feeling was bizarre, a combination of containment, support, and profound wrongness. Yet, I couldn't deny the aesthetic effect. The bra lifted and shaped my chest, giving me a silhouette that was, well, very feminine. Next were the panties. I chose a matching pink pair. The silk felt cool and slippery against my skin, a stark contrast to the familiar cotton of boxers. It settled low on my hips, the leg openings high, the fabric disturbingly minimal. I stood there for a long moment, wearing only a matching pink lingerie set, staring at the stranger in the mirror. Part of me was screaming, repulsed and furious. This was a violation, a curse. I was Daniel, trapped in this doll's body. But another part of me, a quiet, treacherous little voice, couldn't help but notice the details, the way the lace looked against my pale skin, the graceful curve of my waist, the long, slender line of my legs. There was a weird, disconnected sense of appreciation, as if I were looking at a painting, a beautiful, horrifying painting that I was trapped inside. This body didn't feel powerful like my old one did. It didn't feel strong. It felt delicate, vulnerable, but also, in a way I couldn't yet admit, strangely alluring. The anger was still there, a hot coil in my stomach, but it was now tangled with a confusion so deep it left me breathless. I wasn't just a man in a woman's body. I was becoming someone else entirely. And the scariest part was that a tiny piece of me was starting to wonder what that might be like. A text message pinged on the pink case phone I found on the nightstand. The screen lit up with a name I didn't recognize, Coach Angela, and a simple, terrifying message, Jim. Now, uniforms are waiting. The message was a group text. Scrolling up, I saw the contact names. They weren't Mike, Jack, and Sam anymore. They were Michelle, Jackie, and Sarah. Angela had changed everything. A cold dread settled in my stomach. I had to go. I had to face the others. I scanned my new wardrobe, my mind rebelling against every option. Dresses felt too vulnerable, skirts too drafty. I finally settled on a pair of tight, dark wash jeans and a simple white t-shirt. Even these felt alien. The jeans hugged my new curves in a way that felt both restrictive and revealing. And the t-shirt, designed for a female frame, was fitted at the waist and snug across the chest. It felt like I was in costume. Walking across campus was a surreal ordeal. The world looked different from 5'6". People who I used to tower over now met my gaze or looked down at me. Men's eyes lingered on me in a way they never had before, a quick, appreciative up and down glance that made my skin crawl with a mixture of shame and a weird, unfamiliar flutter. I felt exposed, judged, and utterly powerless. I found the others huddled outside the gymnasium. A miserable-looking flock of newly minted girls. Jackie was a stunning brunette with a fiery look in her eyes, already unconsciously flicking her long hair over her shoulder. Sam, now Sarah, was a freckle-faced redhead with an athletic build that, even in its female form, hinted at her former life as a running back. Everyone was wearing some variation of jeans and a t-shirt, looking just as awkward and out of place as I felt. Danielle, Jackie asked, her voice a husky, feminine tone. It took me a second to realize she was talking to me. It's Daniel, I snapped, my new voice lacking any of its old authority. Is it? Though she shot back, gesturing to my chest. Look at us. We're a nightmare from a teen movie. Angela appeared at the gym doors, clipboard in hand, looking infuriatingly pleased with herself. Ladies, glad you could make it. Stop dawdling and get inside. We have a lot of work to do. Inside, the gym was set up for cheer practice. Mats covered the floor, and against one wall was a rack. Hanging from the rack were 20 identical uniforms, shimmering under the fluorescent lights. They were our school colors, blue and gold, but they were not jerseys. They were cheerleading uniforms. Each one consisted of a tiny, sleeveless crop top and a short, pleated miniskirt that looked like it would barely cover anything. Next to each uniform was a pair of pristine white sneakers, a pair of knee-high white socks, and a small pile of what I recognized with a lurch of my stomach as blue and gold cheer briefs, essentially glorified panties. Angela smirked at our horrified expressions. "Welcome to the new varsity cheer squad. You're it. Now, change. And don't bother with your own underwear. You wear what I give you." The locker room was a silent chamber of humiliation. We moved like robots, stripping off the unfamiliar civilian clothes to stand awkwardly in our new, strange bodies. No one spoke. The shame was too thick. The uniform was a whole new level of mortification. The briefs were tight and unforgiving. The crop top was so short it exposed a few inches of my soft midriff, and it was ridiculously tight, accentuating my chest in a way that felt obscene. But the skirt was the worst part. It was made of a stiff, swishy material, and the pleats were designed to flare out with the slightest movement. It barely reached the top of my thighs. I pulled on the knee-high socks, which only served to draw more attention to how much bare leg was on display. The sneakers felt light and flimsy compared to my old football cleats. When I finally forced myself to look in the full-length mirror, I felt a fresh wave of despair. I looked like a cheerleader, a perfect, blonde, blue-eyed cheerleader. My long legs seemed to go on forever. My waist looked tiny, and the uniform hugged every new curve. I was everything I used to see from the football field, a girl on the sidelines, there to cheer for the boys. Only now, I was her. We trudged back out to the gym, a procession of disgraced athletes forced into the role of sideline decoration. Angela surveyed us with a critical eye. "Pathetic," she sniffed. "You look like you're on your way to a funeral. Smile, you're cheerleaders. You embody school spirit." She started the practice with basic stretches. It was a joke. Our new bodies were impossibly flexible, bending and stretching in ways that would have been impossible for our old, muscle-bound frames, but we had no strength when she ordered us to do push-ups. Most of us collapsed after one or two, our slender arms giving out. Angela laughed. "Not so strong now. Are you in this world? Your power isn't in your muscles, it's in your grace, your spirit, and your smile." She began to teach us a simple cheer routine. It involved clapping, shouting slogans in our new, high voices, and a few simple jumps. The words felt like poison in my mouth. Go, Tigers. Go fight for victory. I was supposed to be the one they were cheering for. With every jump, my skirt flew up, exposing the tight blue briefs underneath. A hot blush crept up my neck every single time. I felt a constant, terrifying breeze on my thighs. I could feel the eyes of my teammates on me, and I knew my eyes were darting toward them too. We were all in the same boat, all exposed and vulnerable. And as much as I hated to admit it, seeing Jackie, with her long brown hair flying, or Sarah, with her energetic bounces, sparked a strange, confusing feeling in the pit of my stomach. They were my friends, my brothers, but they weren't anymore. They were beautiful girls, and my body, if not my mind, seemed to be noticing. Angela pushed us relentlessly. Higher kicks. Danielle, point your toes. Sarah, Jackie. More spirit, I want to see you sparkle. At one point, my hair fell in my face during a jump. Without thinking, I did a perfect, practiced hair flip, tossing the blonde locks over my shoulder just like I'd seen 1,000 girls do. The motion felt natural, instinctive. Angela saw it and grinned. "See, you're getting the hang of it." She clapped her hands. "That's enough for today. But I want to leave you with one final thought. A little rule of this curse." She walked up to me, her expression turning serious. "The more you hate this, the more you fight it, the deeper it will settle in. The more you despise being a cheerleader, the more you will come to love it. The more you hate wearing this uniform, the more it will feel like your own skin. You can't win by resisting. You can only win by surrendering." Her words hung in the air, a chilling prophecy. I looked down at my ridiculous outfit, at my soft hands and slender legs, And I felt a terror that went beyond the physical changes. She wasn't just trying to change our bodies, she was trying to change our minds. Angela's prophecy began to come true with insidious subtlety. It wasn't a sudden switch, but a slow, creeping erosion of who I used to be. The changes were small at first, so small I could almost convince myself I was imagining them. It started with colors, as Daniel. My world was a palette of blue, gray, and black. Pink was a color that existed only in jokes. But one morning, I found myself lingering by my closet, my eyes drawn to a soft, blush-colored sweater. I told myself it was just because it looked comfortable, but when I put it on, the softness against my skin felt right. I caught my reflection and thought, that color actually looks good on me. The thought was immediately followed by a jolt of self-loathing, but it didn't go away. The same thing happened with makeup. The vanity table had initially been a symbol of my imprisonment. I ignored the pots of color and tubes of gloss. But after a week of grueling cheer practice under Angela's critical gaze, "You girls look washed out under these lights. A little lipstick wouldn't kill you." The curiosity became unbearable. One evening, I sat down at the vanity. My hands trembled as I picked up a tube of lipstick. It was a glossy, cherry red color. I twisted it open and cautiously applied it to my lips. The waxy, smooth texture was strange. I pressed my lips together, distributing the color. Then I looked up. The effect was startling. The splash of red made my blue eyes seem brighter, my skin paler. It transformed my face from merely pretty to something more deliberate, polished. A part of my brain screamed that this was wrong, that Daniel would never, ever wear lipstick. But the girl in the mirror, Danielle, looked undeniably striking. I found myself staring, tilting my head, and a small, involuntary smile touched my newly painted lips. I quickly wiped it off, my heart pounding with shame. But the image was seared into my brain. These changes were happening to everyone. Sarah, who as Sam had been the most no-nonsense of all of us, became obsessed with her athletic wear. She was the first to fully embrace the crop tops and leggings, discovering a joy in the freedom of movement they offered. She spent hours perfecting her high ponytail, making sure it had the perfect swish when she performed a routine. Jackie's transformation was the most dramatic. As Jack, he had been the ultimate flirt, always chasing girls. As Jackie, she reveled in being the one who was chased. She mastered the art of walking in heels, her hips swaying with a confidence that made heads turn. She discovered the power of a short skirt and a well-timed giggle. She was becoming the very type of girl Jack would have pursued, and she seemed to be loving every second of it. My own resistance felt like trying to build a sandcastle against an incoming tide. Every day, a little more of Daniel was washed away. The inner conflict was exhausting. I would wake up, see my female reflection, and feel a surge of anger. I would go to practice and despise every moment of being ordered around by Angela. But then, there would be these moments. During one particularly difficult practice, we were learning a new stunt that required perfect timing. My hair, which I'd started tying back in a simple ponytail, was coming loose. Christine, formerly Chris, noticed. "Hold on, Danny," she said, her voice soft. We had all, reluctantly, started using our new names. It was just easier. She stepped behind me, her fingers gently gathering my hair. Her touch was light, but it sent a shiver down my spine. It was such a simple, friendly gesture, the kind of thing I'd seen girls do for each other a million times. But for me, it was earth-shattering. No guy had ever touched my hair like that. The intimacy of it, the quiet care, made my heart beat faster. She expertly twisted my hair into a neat bun, securing it with a hair tie from her wrist. "There," she said, her hands briefly resting on my shoulders. "That should hold." "Thanks," I mumbled, my face flushing. The feeling was so confusing. It wasn't sexual, not really. It was tender. It was a moment of connection that was entirely foreign to the world of backslapping, fist-bumping male friendship I was used to. The sensory details of my new life were overwhelming. The scent of the fruity shampoo I now use lingered in my hair all day. The feeling of a skirt brushing against my bare legs as I walked was a constant reminder of my vulnerability, but also of a strange new freedom. The sound my sneakers made on the gym floor, a light squeak rather than a heavy thud, spoke volumes about my changed physicality. The turning point came during a uniform fitting. Angela had decided our standard issue skirts weren't short enough for her liking. She brought in a seamstress to have them tailored. We had to stand on a small platform in the locker room, one by one, while a stern-faced woman pinned and measured. When it was my turn, I stood there in the crop top and briefs, my arms crossed over my chest, feeling utterly exposed. The seamstress pulled a new, even shorter skirt over my hips. It was made of the same swishy blue material, but sat higher on my waist and ended at least 2 inches sooner. "Turn," the woman ordered. I slowly rotated on the platform. I caught Jackie's eye in the mirror. She gave me a small, encouraging smile, as if to say, "I know, this sucks, but you look good." And the craziest part, she was right. The shorter skirt made my legs look even longer. It accentuated the curve of my hips. It was an objectively flattering, attractive piece of clothing. "Okay, you're done," the seamstress said. I stepped off the platform. The ridiculously short skirt swishing around my thighs. I hated it. I hated the exposure, the implication, the sheer cheerleaderness of it all. But as I walked back to my spot, I couldn't deny the small, treacherous thrill that ran through me. It was the thrill of looking good, of embodying this new person, even if it was against my will. I was losing the fight. And the most terrifying part was, I was starting to suspect I didn't want to win. Retail therapy. Jackie announced one Saturday after a brutal practice. It's what girls do. And right now, we are definitely girls who need therapy. A chorus of groans met her suggestion, but no one had a better idea. The thought of continuing to wear the strange, ill-fitting female clothes that had magically appeared in our closets was depressing. Maybe buying something for ourselves, making a choice, would give us a sliver of control back. So, the 7 core members of our unwilling squad found ourselves at the local mall. The experience was immediately disorienting. The mall, a place I'd visited hundreds of times as Daniel, felt like a foreign country. The music seemed louder, the lights brighter, and the attention was constant. We were a group of 7 attractive young women, and we drew eyes wherever we went. Our first stop was a trendy clothing store filled with racks of crop tops, distressed jeans, and tiny dresses. Sarah, ever the athlete, made a beeline for the activewear. Jackie, in her element, started pulling slinky tops and short skirts off the racks. I just stood there, overwhelmed. "What's your style?" Danny Michelle, formerly Mike, asked. She was struggling, too, as a huge linebacker. Her new form was tall and statuesque, and she seemed terrified of taking up space. "My style is a hoodie and sweatpants," I mumbled. "Not anymore," Jackie chirped. Appearing at my side, she held up a pair of skin-tight, high-waisted jeans. "Try these. Your legs are amazing. You have to show them off." Before I could protest, she shoved the jeans into my hands, along with a soft, off-the-shoulder sweater. "Go on, humor me." The changing room felt like a confessional booth. I squeezed into the jeans. They were a battle to get on, requiring a surprising amount of wiggling and pulling. But once they were zipped, the effect was shocking. They hugged my hips, thighs, and calves, lifting and shaping in a way that was undeniably flattering. They made my legs look a mile long. The sweater was incredibly soft, and the way it draped off one shoulder felt casually elegant and a little bit daring. I stepped out to show the others. Jackie let out a low whistle. "See, I told you, you're a classic beauty." "Danielle, you just have to own it." A young sales clerk, a guy about our age with a friendly smile, walked over. "That looks amazing on you," he said. His eyes fixed on me. "The fit is perfect." I felt a hot blush spread across my cheeks. As Daniel, I'd never been the one to receive compliments on my appearance. I was praised for my arm, my strategy, my strength. This was different. This was purely about how I looked, and it was coming from a guy who saw me as nothing more than a pretty girl in a pair of jeans. Thanks," I stammered, suddenly shy. "If you need any other sizes, just let me know," he said with a wink before walking away. The interaction left me flustered and confused. It was annoying to be reduced to just my looks, but the flattery was a potent, addictive drug. It was the first time since the transformation that someone had made me feel attractive, not just freakish. We spent the next hour trying on clothes. It became a strange bonding experience. We offered opinions, zipped each other up, and laughed at the more ridiculous outfits. In that changing room area, surrounded by mirrors and discarded clothes, we weren't former football players. We were just girls. The most intense moment came when I decided to try on a dress Jackie had picked out. It was a simple, navy blue sundress that tied at the waist. It was pretty, but I couldn't manage the zipper in the back. "Janet, can you help me?" I asked, turning to our former defensive lineman. Janet came into my cubicle. The space was small, forcing us close together. I could smell the light, floral scent of her perfume. I held my hair up as she reached for the zipper. Her fingers brushed against the bare skin of my back, and an electric jolt shot through me. It was such a small, innocent touch, but it felt incredibly intimate. My breath hitched. She slowly pulled the zipper up, her knuckles grazing my spine. The dress settled into place, hugging my torso perfectly. "There," she whispered, her voice close to my ear. She didn't move away. Her hands rested on my shoulders for a moment, and her eyes met mine in the mirror. "Wow. Danny," she said, her voice soft with genuine admiration. "You look really beautiful." My heart hammered against my ribs, looking at our reflection. I saw two girls, one tall and dark-haired, her hands on the shoulders of a smaller, blonde girl in a navy dress. It looked so natural, so right. The Danielle in the mirror wasn't blushing out of shame. She was blushing because of the compliment, because of the closeness of her friend. "Thanks, Janet," I managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. The moment was broken when Sarah yelled from her cubicle, "Does this make my butt look big?" But the feeling lingered. That brief, intense connection with Janet, the fluttery feeling from the sales clerk's compliment. Jackie's easy confidence in our new femininity, it was all chipping away at my resolve. I bought the jeans and the sweater, walking out of the store with a shopping bag in my hand, wearing clothes that I had chosen for this new body. Felt like a significant step. I didn't know what I was stepping toward, but for the first time, it didn't feel entirely like a step down. It felt like a step into the unknown, and a terrifyingly small part of me was starting to get excited about the journey. Homecoming. As Daniel. It had always been the peak of my year, the culmination of weeks of hard work, the roar of the crowd, the weight of the school's hopes resting on my shoulders. It was about glory. This year, it was about humiliation. We weren't playing in the game. We were the halftime show. The days leading up to it were a blur of frantic, non-stop practice. Angela was relentless, drilling us until our bodies ached in a new and unfamiliar way. It wasn't the deep muscle burn of weightlifting. It was the sharp pain of overstretched limbs and bruised knees from fumbled stunts. The night of the game, the air was electric with the same energy I'd always loved, but now it filled me with dread. In the cheerleaders' locker room, a place I'd never imagined I'd see, from the inside the mood was tense. "I think I'm going to be sick," Michelle muttered, pacing back and forth. "What if someone recognizes us?" I asked, the question that had been haunting all of us. "What if my old friends are in the stands?" Jackie, surprisingly, was the voice of reason. She was sitting at a makeup station, expertly applying a layer of shimmering eyeshadow. "So what if they do? They'll see a hot cheerleader. They won't see Daniel the quarterback. They'll see Danielle. We're different people now. We have to be." Her words were meant to be comforting, but they chilled me to the bone. We're different people now. Our homecoming uniforms were a step beyond our usual practice gear. They were made of a glittering, metallic fabric that caught the light with every movement. The crop tops were cut even tighter, and the skirts were impossibly short, flaring out dramatically instead of our usual knee-high socks. We had been given sheer, flesh-toned tights that had a subtle shimmer, and on top, thin white ankle socks. The effect was one of long, glossy, nearly bare legs. Our hair was styled in high, bouncy ponytails, tied with enormous blue and gold ribbons. Looking at myself in the mirror was an out-of-body experience. The girl staring back was all sparkle and gloss. Her face was painted with foundation, blush, and eyeliner that made her eyes look huge. Her lips were a shocking shade of glossy red. She looked confident, spirited, and completely alien. We huddled together before running out onto the field, a nervous circle of glitter and fabric. For a moment, the old team dynamic resurfaced. "Okay," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "We just have to get through this. We do the routine. We get off the field. We can do this." We ran out onto the track surrounding the football field, and the roar of the crowd was deafening. Thousands of people. The stadium lights were blinding. I felt a wave of stage fright so intense I thought my knees would buckle. My old life was out there. On that field, my replacement, a sophomore named Kevin, was warming up. And for a heart-stopping moment, I felt a pang of jealousy so sharp it stole my breath. That should be me. But then the music started, a loud, pulsating pop song, and something inside me shifted. My body took over. The weeks of relentless drilling had burned the routine into my muscle memory. My arms snapped into a sharp high V. My legs kicked. My toes pointed. A bright, artificial smile plastered itself onto my face. I moved in perfect sync with the 6 other girls beside me. We jumped, and our short skirts flew up. We tumbled, our glittery uniforms a blur of motion. We formed a pyramid with the naturally athletic Sarah at the top, and the crowd roared its approval. I looked out at the sea of faces in the stands. They weren't laughing. They weren't pointing. They were cheering. They were cheering for us, for the pretty girls in the sparkly outfits who were putting on a dazzling show. And in that moment, something broke inside me. The fear and shame that had been my constant companions for weeks were washed away by a tidal wave of adrenaline and exhilaration. I wasn't Daniel, the quarterback, being judged on his performance. I was Danielle, a cheerleader, and I was part of a team that was captivating thousands of people. I'd always felt seen on the football field, but this was different. As a quarterback, people saw my skill, my strength, now. They saw me, they saw my smile, my energy, my body. It was a more vulnerable kind of attention, but it was also intoxicating. For the first time, I felt powerful, not in a physical sense, but in a charismatic, captivating way. The routine ended with us all in a final pose, breathless and sweating under the hot lights, our chests heaving. The crowd erupted in applause. It was for us. As we ran off the field, our hearts pounding, a genuine, giddy laughter bubbled up among us. We'd done it. We'd survived. "Did you hear them?" Sarah squealed, her face flushed with excitement. "We were amazing," Jackie declared, pulling us into a group hug. I was swept up in the moment, in the shared victory, all the resentment, all the anger. It all felt distant and unimportant. What felt real was the adrenaline, the pride, and the bond I shared with these girls, my teammates, my sisters. I realized then that Jackie had been right. No one out there saw Daniel. They saw Danielle, and for the first time since the curse. I looked at the pretty blonde cheerleader and didn't feel a sense of loss. I felt a flicker of something new, something I couldn't quite name. It felt like acceptance. It felt like pride. The success of the homecoming performance changed us. The constant gloom and resentment that had hung over our practices was replaced by a new energy. We were still victims of a curse, but we were also a damn good cheer squad, and we were starting to take pride in that. The newfound confidence gave us the courage to do what we should have done weeks ago. We decided to confront Angela. We cornered her after practice the following Monday, the 7 of us forming a united, if nervous, front. "We need to talk," I said, stepping forward as the group's unofficial spokesperson. My voice was steady, imbued with the confidence I'd discovered on the field. Angela raised an eyebrow, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. She leaned against the pom-pom rack, feigning boredom. "Oh, and what do the stars of the halftime show want to talk about?" "This has to end," Jackie said, her arms crossed over her chest. "You made your point. You humiliated us. It's time to change us back." Angela's expression hardened. "Humiliated you from where I was standing. It looked like you were having the time of your lives. The crowd loved you." "That's not the point," I insisted. "This isn't our life. We're not these people. But even as I said the words, they felt hollow. I looked at my friends. Sarah, in her tight leggings and practice top, looked more at home in her athletic female body than she ever had as Sam. Jackie's posture, her makeup, her perfectly styled hair, she wore her femininity like a second skin. And me? I was wearing short cheer shorts and a crop top, my hair in a ponytail. And I hadn't even thought twice about it. We weren't these people, who were we? Then, Angela pushed herself off the rack and walked slowly towards us. Her gaze was intense, analytical. Are you so sure about that? Are you sure you want to go back to being loud? Arrogant boys who find it funny to trip a girl and mock her for weeks. The memory of what we'd done to her hung in the air, a guilty silence falling over our group. You think your old lives were so much better, she continued, her voice low and dangerous. You were popular. Yes, but were you happy or were you just playing a part? The tough jock, the ladies' man, the star quarterback. She stopped in front of me. Look at you now, Danielle. You're connecting with your friends on a level you never could as Daniel. You're discovering a different kind of strength. You're finding confidence not in what you can do, but in who you are. Do you really want to give that up? Her words hit me harder than any tackle ever had. She saw right through me, right to the core of the conflict that was tearing me apart. We want the choice, Michelle said, her voice quiet but firm. Angela smiled, a slow, mysterious smile. A choice, fine. She reached into the pocket of her warm-up jacket and pulled out something that made us all gasp. It was a silver wand, slender and elegant, with a small, glowing pink crystal at its tip. It pulsed with a soft, magical light. This will reverse the curse, she said, holding it out. One tap, and you'll be back in your old bodies, in your old dorm rooms, with your old lives. Everything will be as it was. The choice is yours. She laid the wand on a nearby practice mat, then took a step back. So, who wants to go first? Who wants to be a boy again? An electric silence filled the gym. The wand lay there, shimmering, a tangible path back to everything we had lost. This was it, the end of the nightmare. But no one moved. I looked at Jackie. Her eyes were fixed on the wand, a complex emotion on her face. She thought about the endless attention, the flirting, the power she now wielded. I looked at Sarah. She glanced down at her own lean, flexible body, a body that could tumble and fly in ways her old one never could. I looked at Janet and Christine, who had discovered a deep, supportive friendship that had been impossible in the competitive, macho world of the football team. Then, I looked at my own reflection in the gym's mirrored wall. I saw Danielle. She looked scared, but also strong. She was wearing a ridiculous outfit, but she wore it with a newfound grace. She had friends who touched her hair and zipped up her dress. She had felt the roar of a crowd that adored her. Angela's question echoed in my mind. Do you really want to give that up? Go back to being Daniel. Back to the grunting, the sweat, the casual cruelty, the emotional illiteracy of the jock world. Back to a life where I was praised for throwing a ball, but no one ever told me I was beautiful. Back to a life where I had teammates, but not sisters. The thought of losing this new life, as terrifying and unwanted as it had been at first, now filled me with a surprising sense of panic. I had changed. We had all changed. The curse had been cruel, a punishment born of justified anger. But maybe it had also been a gift. Jackie was the first to speak, her voice barely a whisper. I don't know. Sarah shook her head slowly. I like being able to move like this. One by one, the others murmured their hesitation. The path back was right there, easy and waiting, but none of us were taking it. The silence stretched, thick with the weight of our unspoken decision. Angela watched us, her expression unreadable. She hadn't expected this. She had expected us to leap at the chance, to fight over the wand. But we just stood there, a group of cheerleaders in a silent standoff with our pass. Finally, I took a deep breath and met her gaze. What happens if we don't take it? Angela's lips curved into a genuine, non-mocking smile for the first time. Then I guess you stay on the squad, she said softly. and I guess I stay your coach." No one picked up the wand. The wand remained on the mat for the rest of practice, a silent testament to the choice we had made by not making a choice. When practice ended, Angela picked it up and it vanished with a soft shimmer of pink light. Nothing more was said. The decision was sealed. Life after that day was different. The constant internal battle, the rage against my new reality, subsided. It was replaced by a sense of calm, a quiet acceptance that flowed into every part of my life. We had been given an out, and we had refused it. This life was ours now, because we had, on some fundamental level, chosen it. We threw ourselves into being the best cheer squad this university had ever seen. Our routines became more complex, our stunts more daring. We practiced with a new focus, not as prisoners fulfilling a sentence, but as athletes honing their craft. Our shared secret, the shared trauma and the shared decision, forged a bond between us that was stronger than steel. We were more than a team. We were a family, a sisterhood born from the most bizarre circumstances imaginable. My life as Danielle began to feel less like a role I was playing and more like me. I found a style that felt right, classic, simple, and comfortable. I learned how to do my makeup in a way that felt like an enhancement, not a costume. I even started to enjoy the little rituals, the morning routine of skincare, the meditative process of choosing an outfit, the simple pleasure of painting my nails a new color. The flirting and attention from boys was still sometimes awkward, but it was no longer terrifying. I learned to handle it with a polite smile and a newfound confidence. I realized the power wasn't in their attention, but in my ability to accept or deflect it as I chose. There were still moments of profound strangeness. Of course, sometimes I'd hear a deep voice laugh in a crowd and my head would snap around, expecting to see one of my old teammates. Or I'd catch a football game on TV and feel a phantom ache in my throwing arm. The ghost of Daniel was still there, a whisper from a past life. But the voice of Danielle was growing louder every day. One sunny afternoon, a few weeks after the confrontation with Angela, the squad was practicing on the main quad, enjoying the warm weather. We were laughing and chatting between routines, a mess of ponytails and blue and gold uniforms. I was sitting on the grass, stretching, when Janet sat down beside me. "Dad, you seem happy," she said, her voice gentle. I looked around at my friends. Sarah was effortlessly demonstrating a backflip to an impressed Michelle. Jackie was reapplying her lip gloss, catching her reflection in her phone screen. They all looked happy, content. I thought about the journey I'd been on, the horror in the locker room, the despair in my new dorm room, the humiliation of the first practice, and the slow, reluctant blooming of something new. I had lost everything I thought I was, only to find someone I never could have imagined, someone who was more emotionally honest, more connected to her friends, and in many ways, more confident than the boy she used to be. I looked at Janet, at her kind eyes and easy smile, and I felt a warmth spread through my chest that had nothing to do with the afternoon sun. It was a feeling of belonging, of peace. "I am," I said, and I was surprised by how true the words felt. I smiled, a real, genuine smile that reached my eyes. I used to think what happened to us was a curse, the worst thing that could possibly happen. I paused, watching as my teammates effortlessly formed a pyramid, their laughter echoing across the quad. But now, I whispered, more to myself than to her, I'm starting to think it was a gift. I was Danielle, and for the first time, I was truly, completely okay with that. In fact, I was more than okay. I was home.